according to Tom Holman and the Trump administration, we have seen zero crossings of illegal migrants on that southern border, especially in the state of Texas. And what are we looking like to not only end the bleeding, but then also start cleaning up the crime that's going on in the nation? That's where we go to our next guest here on the program. He's a bail attorney in the great state of Texas and a board member for the Professional Bondsmen of Texas. Really happy to have on the program Mr. Ken Good. Ken, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me this Saturday afternoon.
Absolutely. I appreciate you joining us on the program. First and foremost, is it true that from what you've seen on the southern border in Texas, are we literally seeing the stopping of the flow of illegal migrants coming across that border?
Absolutely. Texas is right on the right in the crosshairs, and absolutely that's true.
That is amazing. That is really good news. So I was down there a couple of years ago and looking at where some of these individuals cross, the cartel issues. Now that we've stopped the flow, and we've talked about this on the program of multiple different steps, you stop the flow. You know, if you have a leaky basement, you have to stop the water from coming in the first place before you can begin cleaning up. How's this next step looking with the cleaning up of the process, getting rid of these illegal migrants that aren't just undocumented, but are specifically criminals, that are the gang members, that are the cartel members, that are doing human trafficking and that are doing rapes and murders and all this other stuff? Are we starting to see that get cleaned up now?
I think we are. There's an article that came out last week from the Federalist which is quoting the FBI director, Kash Patel, saying that as we're removing violent offenders, we're on track to have the lowest murder rate in the United States since probably 2014.
Wow. That's incredible. Now, there was another story, and I'm sure this is the media trying to, attack Trump. While the Trump administration obviously praising themselves for how good things are going, which should be because it's well-deserved. The media says that we've only gotten 6% of the illegal migrants in the country that have actually committed crimes. Is that true? Because I think that would be a little bit higher, but even if it is only 6%, that just shows how many of them there actually are.
Yeah, that's just a politically driven number. I mean, if you were to ask the Trump administration, they would absolutely say that was incorrect. But the biggest impact is when you start showing that the government is going to hold people accountable, whether that is for illegal immigration, if they're violent offenders and they're been convicted of violent crimes, they're going to be targeted for removal, or just criminals in our country, if they are afraid they're going to be held accountable if they step out of the bounds of what they're supposed to do, that has an impact on their propensity to commit more crime. It has, I always say there's this city within a city of criminals. We have a small group of people that commit the same, a big percentage of crimes, but we have a lot of people living in the gray area that's trying to decide every day, if they're not going to be held accountable, I'm going to live in the crime city. But if there's accountability, I'm going to live in the law-abiding city. You're seeing the impact of holding people accountable, whether it's just criminals who are citizens or illegal immigrants. The people in the gray areas are saying, I am taking note of what's taking place, and I'm going to follow the law.
It's a really great point. That reminds me of California, where they allowed that, the whole you can steal up to $900 worth of goods and only have it be a misdemeanor because we don't want to go through the paperwork to arrest you and have you back out on the street and do it all over again. When you incentivize that and you can steal almost $1,000 worth of goods and only have a slap on the wrist, what's the incentive to not go and do something like that, Ken?
Oh, it got even worse than that, because once they passed that Prop 47, then the DAs in our urban areas in California decided they just weren't even going to prosecute it. And so as a result, stores started closing because they couldn't sustain $25,000 a day of shoplifting. And then you have crime running amok in areas. So like the Nancy Pelosi Federal Building in San Francisco told all their employees to work from home because it wasn't safe to come to work. And then the ultimate impact is on commercial property values. You see properties or buildings that were selling for 30 to 50% of their value from 3 or 4 years before. So those policies have a huge impact on our urban cities, and they're just terrible.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Do you think California's learned their lesson yet? I mean, I know they've retracted a little bit of some of those laws like that proposition, but have they learned their lesson entirely to say, hey, maybe we should try something different here?
No, and because the the proposition that repealed or rolled back Prop 47 in some areas, the legislature didn't fund a lot of it. So those parts of it have not gotten into effect, even though it rolled back Prop 47.
Wow, that's interesting. We're talking with Ken Good. He is a bail attorney in the state of Texas, also a board member for the Professional Bondsmen of the state of Texas. Let's talk about Texas for just a moment and your guys' crime rates. I know that you have some pretty big metropolitan cities across the state, and obviously I'm assuming that's where the majority of that crime resides as well, but specifically on the southern border, right in those small towns where a lot of the cartels and illegal migrants were in before, and then these metropolitan areas, is crime getting better in Texas, do you think?
Yes, and you're seeing both parties make a big shift on crime, and the reason for that is our border counties that along the border with Mexico, all of those have traditionally been Democrat counties. All of them but one elected Republican representatives for the state legislature this session. And So, yeah, you've seen a huge shift. Texas has gone the opposite direction of our urban areas. They've strengthened criminal justice and bail reform and highlighted accountability and required judges to not give out free bonds for violent offenses. And so you're seeing crime may be going up in other places, but where it's coming down in Texas. The only places it's not is like we have Harris County, which is Houston, Texas, which is a Democrat and stronghold, where they think that they just have to release everybody, hold nobody accountable, and they're still suffering the consequences of it. But the public is catching on, and I think every contested Democrat judge in the last election was defeated.
I'm glad you guys are really strengthening the bond issue. There's been a lot of pushes from other states to try and eliminate bonds altogether for criminals and individuals and be able to just come out of jail on, I don't know, some promissory note from the government or whatever they want to do. But it sounds like you guys are actually working in the right direction, reinforcing the bonds, because that's the right way to go here, isn't it?
Absolutely. There was a judge on the News Nation town hall that said until you have something that has the same high level of accountability and the same low failure to appear rate, you don't have an alternative to the private bail industry. And what these other states are trying, New York with a certain list of charges where you mandate to be released on no bail, or California where they have a list of charges where you're released on no bail or zero bail. I mean, this lack of accountability is it's a green light to commit more crime, and that's what happens.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. Down in the state of Texas, by the way, I know you said that the legislature is starting to go more conservative this year, which is exciting. I'm glad people are waking up, and even in the metropolitan area starting to recognize that. Is there still a lingering effect of progressivism, of, say, another attempt at like Beto O'Rourke trying to rise up again and be governor or run for some position in the state of Texas? Because he seems to be a nuisance in your area.
Here's the problem in Texas. Texas has always been a conservative state. Even when it was a Democrat state, it was a Democrat conservative state. And so to run statewide in Texas right now, you have to state policies that would be progressive and to raise the money to run statewide. But once you do that, you pretty much disqualify yourself from being able to win. So you say the policies that get you the money to run, and then you lose by 13 points.
Yeah, well, that's good. God bless Texas for that, then. You're still holding on to your traditional values, and you won't let it go, even with a lot of people moving to Texas from California and other progressive areas. And they've tried to change it. Boy, have they tried, but you guys are staying strong on that front. Ken, hang on the line. We got to take a hard break here. It's Ken Good. He is the bail attorney for the state of Texas, also a board member for the Professional Bondsmen of Texas. When we come back, I want to talk about the future of bonds across the nation. I want to talk about the future of the Democrat Party and their lack of enforcement of laws, their lack of actually punishing bad guys, and how we can start cleaning up crime rates across the nation. We'll do all that and more when we come back. Stay here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hooser.
Man, I got to say, as usual, there's so much to talk about and so little time to do it. Last segment as we wrap things up for this hour of the program. Always appreciate you hanging out with us on a weekend as usual. We have not even gotten to the point there were some committee hearings this weekend or throughout this week, and we haven't got to talk about them, including one with the Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and the MAHA movement that's going on. Fox News had a bit this week that talked about some of the changes that are happening with some of the major corporations.
Big food brands are making changes to their products as the Trump administration pushes to make America healthy again. So take a look. We start with General Mills. They're removing artificial food dyes from U.S. cereals and the foods that they send to our schools, K through 12 schools. That's going to happen by next summer. This is going to happen by the end of 2027. They're removing all artificial dyes completely by the end, like I said, it's 2027. They make Trick cereal, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Cheerios, Rice Chex, the things that are probably in your pantry. Also, Kraft and Heinz, they're saying goodbye to the artificial dyes by the end of 2027.
Boom. It goes on, too. There's like 3 minutes of that stuff, and there's more announcements that keep happening day in and day out. Those are major wins. The state of Oklahoma wrapped up on Friday with their governor Kevin Stitt, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. there with him, announcing their Make Oklahoma Healthy Again by banning fluoride in the water, and then some of the companies there as well, obviously being a lot of agricultural community around that area, that they want to ban a lot of the preservatives and dyes in their food that they process in that area. So really exciting stuff on that front. We're right now talking about some of the crime rates in the country, crime rates from illegal aliens and U.S. citizens, and how we start cleaning up these streets across the nation as we talk with Ken Good. He is a bail attorney for the state of Texas and a board member for the Professional Bondsmen of Texas. Ken, I got to play you the primary individual, the guy that won the Democrat primary for New York City, this Democrat socialist that says he wants to get rid of police altogether. And his plan, by the way, is to remove law enforcement and to impose what he says for the city of New York, gun violent interrupters. I don't know what that means, but this is him talking about socialism.
Do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism. And I think ultimately the definition for me of why I call myself a democratic socialist is the words of Dr. King decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. There must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country.
That's okay. Okay. So, he now says that he wants to get rid of gun violence by using gun violence interrupters. Ken, I don't even know what that means. What is that?
I think it's a hope and a prayer. I think, this guy is an example of the civil war that's going on in the Democrat Party, because the faithful in the Democrat Party feel like they were not allowed to make the choice for president when the party elites picked Clinton, when they picked Biden, and then when they picked Kamala Harris. And so the coalition that they've always had, which is Wall Street funds the election, and then they focus on social issues and leave the Wall Street alone, that coalition's been completely destroyed. And you can see that, or nowhere else is it more evident than in the selection of this guy as their candidate. And it will be even worse at the next presidential election, because they think that the reason why they're losing is they just haven't gone far enough left. And if they would be true lefties, they would be winning. And so the whole, our system is made to, when you go to extremes and you lose, you moderate. But because of the actions of the party, the faithful have not been forced to moderate, and this guy is the direct result of that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ken. We got just less than a minute left here on that front. Does that mean that Democrats need to reform what they're going to talk about? Because they're playing for getting rid of crime in the nation has not worked. Are the American people going to embrace that ideology, or will they continue to reject it?
I've been telling people that, this is all identity politics. We've got to force the party to moderate, and we do that by voting against their ideas. So we did that this election. We need to do it at least one more time, and then we can go back to our identity politics. But the public needs to vote for public safety, and then both parties will revert back to public safety, and we can go back to fighting about identity.
There have been many mayors across the nation, and I believe one there in the state of Texas that flipped from Democrat to Republican on this issue because they realized that no enforcement of laws at all is not a good policy, and defunding police is not a good policy. we're on the winning track here. Ken Good, he's a Texas bail attorney, also the board member for the Professional Bondsmen of Texas. Ken, we appreciate the time very much, my friend. Let's do it again soon.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, you betcha. Great conversation. The crime rates in the nation, hopefully getting better as we move forward. Until then, though, we'll see if this one big, beautiful bill ends up passing throughout this weekend. And we are back at it next weekend for your 4th of July Independence Day celebration. We'll cover it. Until then, be your own voice of reason. Be that catalyst for change in your local community. This is the Voice of Reason. I'm Andy Hooser. We'll see you on the radio. Bye.